Hello Internet, and today's video is going to be another book opinion, those videos in which I tell you my opinion on a book, and today's book is going to be Armada by Ernest Cline. This is the same man who wrote Ready Player One. So I'm not sure how to approach this book opinion because I know a majority of people who are probably watching this video or on BookTube have probably already read Ernest Cline's more popular work, Ready Player One, and are in love with it, or at least you've heard of it, you've seen the new movie trailer, like you're familiar with the concept. And when I was first starting BookTube, I kept hearing that Armada wasn't as good, Ready Player One's where it's at, and I don't know what to say in comparison, whether or not Ready Player One is truly better or not, or whatever is going on there. So I can only give you my thoughts and opinions on Armada, and I can't really give you my opinions on Ernest Cline as an author or how this compares to Ready Player One. So that's all I could say there, but let's talk about this book. I actually enjoyed this book. I love pop culture, like nerdy, geeky pop culture. I'm a very big nerd and geek. Like, I spend my time reading fan fiction, watching anime, reading comic books, debating about them with different people and whoever I can find. So, this is a large part of my life. I live this. I'm just a big old otaku nerd. That's just who I am as a person. So Armada was the perfect book for me. For a person who's very familiar with pop culture in the nerd sphere, this is a book filled with that. So it follows this kid and he plays this game called Armada, and it's his favorite game. And it's a fighting simulator where you pilot drones in this war against this alien species. So he's playing this game, and then he ends up finding out that this game is actually a recruitment method that a secret division of the World Army has been using to try to train civilians so that they will be ready for an alien attack, whether it's using drones to fight the aliens or just so that they can be ready for the imminent attack of aliens. So it's this whole conspiracy, it's this whole science fiction conspiracy that Star Wars and Star Trek and all these things were introduced at the very beginning, not to entertain us, but to train the human mind to get used to the concept that aliens could potentially come and conquer the Earth. And then with the installation of video games, they've been using video games to train civilians on how to fight aliens using video game technology, right? And it turns out that this is all real. All of this is going down right now. And this kid is one of the head pilots because he is a really high ranking on the game system, and he's trying to put it all together. This isn't a game anymore. This is real life. There is a real Armada, and there are real aliens out there to conquer and destroy the human race. So I really, really like this book. I think it was the perfect book for those of us who are super, super nerdy and love pop culture, because it's going to use a lot of pop culture nerd phrases as words. So you know how in English we tend to make words that aren't nouns, or make words that are nouns, verbs. So that happens a lot here, but in placing it with a sort of nerd inspired word. So one of the phrases I think they use is that's his Kobashi Maru, and that's from Star Trek. So if you're familiar with Star Trek, you know what they're talking about, and you know the whole history behind that. But if you're not, you're just why did they say that random word there? I don't know what it means. What? That's not a verb. So it's something that you have to go into it having broad nerd knowledge of the nerddom for you to fully appreciate this book for what it is. I don't know how that compares to Ready Player One. I know it has a lot of pop culture there, but I don't know how it uses it. So I know in this book it's better and it's more enjoyable if you're really familiar with these things, because you quickly pick up on how they're using the language, how they're using this nerd sphere verse of words to add into their story without explaining what any of these things are. They're expecting you to know what they're talking about when they mention these things, right? So if you're not one of those people, you might go into this book and you might not be able to get it. You might not enjoy yourself. Another thing that I thought was a little odd for this book that it did that I'm not quite sure about, but I understand why it happens, is the pacing on it. And it's such a fast, rapid pacing. Like, it feels like stunted. Like, you do a sprint, then you stop, then you do a sprint, and then you stop, and then you do a sprint, and then you stop. And it's really odd for reading wise, but it's understandable because it really makes the book feel like it only happens in the span of a couple days or a couple hours, which in reality, that's when this whole book takes place, is in like a 48-hour period. So having it feel like random jolts forwards and then stops really helps you get into that mindset that this isn't taking a really long time. Like, this story is very condensed. It's only taking over a day and a half. And that is something I appreciated, for the simple fact that I've always been really confused when books like set themselves up and they're like, whoa, this whole story only happened in a week. And I'm like, you went on an adventure quest, you met a god, became a god, fell, went to the underworld, went back, defeated 2 dragons, fought a monster, and you're saying all of this happened in a span of 1 week? No, that's at least 1.5 years. I don't care what you say. It should take you longer than that. So I like that this book really just gave you that pacing where it felt really fast and it felt like it was only happening in a day. But like, reader wise, outside of my appreciation that I could be like, oh yeah, that feels like a day, it was a little jolting because it was like, wow, everything's happening really quickly. I like this book. That's like all I can say about it. Anything more. I think this book is specifically targeted towards people who are really nerdy and really familiar with like sci-fi lingo specifically. And if you're familiar with that and you're familiar and well versed with sci-fi entertainment, you'll probably enjoy this book. But if you're not, you might find it a little frustrating because it doesn't take time to flesh out this whole story, so you don't get a real chance to catch up and get integrated into a world if you're not as familiar with it. Like, it doesn't give you that chance to sit down and be like, oh, okay, this is what's going on, because it's only happening in a day and we're at war with an alien species. So like, you don't got no chance to catch up to figure out what they're talking about, because you're gonna die if you want to wait around. So like, that's all I can say on this book. I really want to read Ready Player One, preferably before the movie comes out, and maybe if I read that, I'll give you more opinions on how Armada compares to that. But I do think that this is a really good book, and that I would like to see what happens in Ready Player One, because so many more people enjoy that, and I like books that have pop culture nerdy stuff in it, so that I can enjoy and be a nerd and just nerd out on things. Like, it's a pastime of mine. If you have read both books by Ernest Cline, comment down below and tell me which one you prefer more, or if there's a distinguishable difference between them. If you've read neither, well, I guess comment down below about that too. If you like what you're seeing here and you want to continue to see more, click all those bunnies down below, and goodbye, internet.